Hey, hello guys. Welcome back to No Brush Required Reads. It is our fourth or fifth installment of our virtual art club, book club chat. I'm going to grab my co-host Barbara Reed and we're going to get going. How's everybody today? Is it gray at your place? It's gray here. Hi.
Good afternoon.
Good morning, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
It's so gray here. The rain and
Oh,
the winter weather has kind of sunk in. It's like 14 degrees and cold.
okay, that's nothing like what it is here. It's beautiful out, sunny, pretty nice. I hate to say 20, maybe 19 or 20.
Perfect weather. That's my
Connect time.
favorite weather.
Yeah. And it's supposed to stay, I think it's supposed to stay like this for a while. So I'm sorry you've got the bad weather. And aren't you supposed to get like high winds?
We had them. And that was a bit of a concern because my parents were coming over on the ferry from Vancouver Island, and they came on the 9 a.m. yesterday, and both the 8 and the 10 were canceled. We're like,
Oh,
and we had to get them. It was necessary for them to get back because they left this morning early on their Rocky Mountaineer train trip. So they're taking the train through the Rockies and all the way to Banff and Jasper. So I had to get them on that train this morning at like 6:30.
that's a tad nerve-wracking.
Yeah, it was. Yesterday, well, Sunday night, we were kind of like, what do we do? Do we put them on now? Do we put them on tomorrow? I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyways, it all worked out.
It always
Yeah.
does. It always does. Hey, Douglas.
Hi,
What do you say? Autumn in Seattle. I love autumn. I would like to see it a little bit chillier here because it's leaf kicking weather, sweater weather.
Yeah, but you guys get the sun with it. So once it kicks in here, we might get some, we should still get some sunny days, but it gets gray and rainy. So you can't kick the leaves because they're too soggy.
You can't kick them. They are falling though. It's funny. Well, it's interesting how Mother Nature seems to know it's a new season and the trees are starting to de-leaf.
One of the things I missed so much. So when I'm a knitter, I've been a knitter my whole life, and living back in Ontario and Montreal, the falls were great because I could wear these beautiful hand-knit sweaters outside. In Vancouver, I can wear them, but I have to cover them up with a rain jacket.
Ooh, I hate raincoats. It's like, well, you might as well put on a garbage bag.
Exactly. Especially if you don't want to get wet.
Well, and you just sweat inside them, like they don't breathe. So anyway, there's our weather forecast.
Okay, that's what you guys tune in for every week, right? The weather forecast.
Whether you want it or not, you're getting it.
We can't help it. We're Canadian. We talk about the weather.
And I live in a building with an elevator, and that's what you talk about when you're going down an elevator. So, how's it doing out there?
Isn't that funny? Yeah.
I know. We're such Canadians. What can I say?
Anyways, so hey guys, did anybody read the book? Today's book club day.
Send us a heart.
Are
there other options? Are there like hearts? Like,
people can comment. We see lots of hearts, but I can't tell how many people are hearting us.
Oh, and there's some messages going by really fast.
Awesome. Well, what we'll do is what we try to do with these is, because you guys will have lots of comments as well, is we can kind of start with a bit of an intro. And then since we're not all sitting around in a circle, it makes it hard to have a conversation. But if you want to come on and chat with us, then just send an invite request. Hit that little video icon at the bottom of your screen that's got a plus next to it. And we will invite you on. You have to be camera ready. Not.
I'm so camera ready at all times.
I know. I just do the quick, okay.
I know. When you said you were going to brush your hair, I thought, geez, I better go at least pretend to comb my hair or do something.
Well, I hadn't even looked in a mirror this morning, so I figured I better at least look in a mirror because we left the house about 5:30.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Our place is upside down because we had the carpets clean. So we've got bedroom furniture out in the living room. We've got stuff everywhere. You know when your carpets are wet after they clean it, you're like, the cats are like, the cats have gone berserk because this is like the worst thing ever, right? So it's just been like a fuffly day. What if somebody doesn't want to come on, but they want to share a big comment? Can they put it in that question?
Yeah, they can put it in the question sticker. Yeah, there's a question box as well, because we have a hard time when your comments start flying by catching them. So why don't we do a quick little recap of...
Rena's driving. Pull over.
Okay. Well, don't drive and text, Rena.
No, don't.
Not even for us.
No. Or pull over. If there's, you guys don't have Tim Hortons. Well, maybe you do have Tim Hortons. Go pull over to a Starbucks or something. And
why don't we just start with a quick little, you know, synopsis? Synopsis. I was thinking Cole's Notes, but
have you got one?
Do that. Well, I mean, okay, so the book's called The Art Thief, A True Story of Love, Crime, and a Dangerous Obsession. The author is Michael Finkel. And to start with, it is a true story. And if you haven't read it, we will probably have a spoiler or two. It reads like a true crime sort of book. So we're going to give you the basics. There is an ending to it that is actually really worthy of discussion. And so maybe before we get to the ending, we can just say spoiler alert. And if you don't want to hear what the ending is, then you can leave the conversation and come back later, maybe. Yeah. Because it's an interesting part of the story. So anyways, there's this fellow, his name is Stefan Breitweiser. He's a Frenchman. And he lived in his mom's attic. He was kind of a never really amounted to much sort of guy. He never really held any jobs, had any education, lived off his mom. He and his girlfriend lived in the attic of his mom's house. And over a period of, I think, 3 or 4 years, it was a pretty short period of time, ending in 2001, they stole hundreds of pieces of art from over 150 museums in Europe. Like crazy. We're not talking like the Louvre. We're talking a lot of small local museums. He was interested in mainly 16th and 17th century work, a lot of metal, small paintings, some sculpture, not necessarily like the Mona Lisa, but pieces that were of interest to him that would have some value and maybe wouldn't be noticed that they had disappeared. So that's sort of the story. And the interesting thing is the crimes were very, very carefully thought out. There was never any violence. He knew a lot about picking locks and how works were put behind secure plexiglass or not so secure plexiglass in museums. And his girlfriend, Anne Catherine, came with him on a lot of the outings initially and would act as scout. And they would literally walk out of a museum with a piece of art stuck in her purse, down his pants, up his sleeve, inside his coat. And it's really incredible to read it, to think that it was that easy for them to get away with it for so long.
That's a good synopsis. So really, I mean, this was a compulsion for him.
Yes.
It was truly the only thing, just based on what I got out of it, that he was obsessed with.
Yes.
To the point of, I mean, he couldn't function doing anything else, really. He really couldn't hold a job for very long. He didn't really have friends. I was fascinated that he actually was in a relationship.
Yes, I was too.
Like with all his personality flaws and his inability to really connect with other people, that he had this like intense love affair with Anne Catherine, right?
Anne Catherine. Yeah.
And that she also was with him because she seemed a little more normal. She held a job. And was she a nurse's aide, I think, in a hospital? Yeah. And yet they shared this, mostly his obsession, but they shared this life of crime, basically.
Well, and that's interesting because as I was reading through the book, it's, yes, it was primarily driven by him, but she participated, she helped him, she enjoyed the art. So the interesting thing was his goal was never to sell this work. He felt like it was his to enjoy. It was work that he fell in love with, and the two of them had it all around this attic, and they would lay in their bed and they would look at beautiful art. And so what I found interesting was, as you move later through the book, here's a spoiler, but it's on the front cover. He does get caught. That's how we know what he's done, right? He does get caught, but she changes her story. She doesn't really talk to the police or the press, and the story becomes, and he changes the story about her involvement too. So we don't really know what her take on the whole thing was, whether she was really complicit all the way along, or whether it was kind of a, I was thinking the whole book reminds me of like the frog in a pot of boiling water, that it sort of starts small and for certain reasons, and then it just escalates. And, you know, almost like a Stockholm syndrome sort of thing that she was involved with. So we don't really know. And she did go on and have a pretty normal life afterwards, and didn't interact with him anymore after he was caught. But, you know, yeah, I was surprised at that too. I mean, it seemed to me there was a real kind of trajectory when he first started doing this. It was very small, like, you know, it was one piece, and it was an impulsive sort of thing. He wanted to have that beautiful Adam and Eve statue. I think that's where he started.
Oh, the ivory.
Or the little sculpture. And he was truly in love with the art. Like
or marble, not ivory. Marble, right? So
yeah.
He loved, he loved marble pieces.
Yeah. But he truly loved the art. He saw the art, and it was pieces that he really connected with in a way that maybe other people weren't connecting with, and he felt that they were undervalued and wanted to be able to connect with them up close and in private and touch them, you know, the way we can't experience art in galleries. So there was almost like a pure sort of thing at the very beginning. That was how I interpreted it. And then it started to ramp up. Probably that's where the obsessive thing sort of came in, I imagine, right? And there's a certain sense of, you know, well, I got away with that, so.
And he felt he was really releasing the art from these places, that really you know, the museums were almost like prisons in his mind for the artwork. So you know, it's interesting because I found him initially a very sympathetic character, and I thought, well, you know, I can kind of see that. I can kind of see how really art is meant to be enjoyed by people, and to possess it is taking it to one other level, right? Do I ever feel like I won't go into a museum and go, God, I'd love to take that home? Maybe. Maybe. Would I act on it? No. But I can see how it was such a slippery slope, because it was pretty easy. He had his Swiss Army knife. If you've read the book, they say this is a great advertisement for Swiss Army knives, because he accomplished all of his, you know, opening up the cabinets and unscrewing. I think the one, can't remember what the piece was, but it took 30 screws that he was able to get out of the display case, which I can't even imagine. It's like reverse engineering an IKEA piece of furniture in public. But yeah, they say this is a great advertisement for Swiss Army knives. But it just seemed so effortless in a way. He was like a natural at stealing, and certainly not damaging the work and not hurting anybody. He wasn't pulling a gun on the guards or tying anybody up. In fact, he looked down on other art thieves who were more violent in their approach. He thought that was just horrible. So he had his own code of ethics that he followed.
That's true. Yeah. No, Danielle, I'm just going to answer Danielle's question. Was Anne Catherine arrested? She was not charged with anything. She kind of got off scot-free, right? Like they arrested her and questioned her, but she was never.
Well,
I can't remember.
Find something different on that. So I was reading, I read a bunch of articles on it. So this is from Art News. And what did they say? There were a couple things that weren't accurate. She did end up receiving a 6-month prison sentence for handling stolen goods. Even though in the book it said that she spent exactly one night in jail. The conviction was expunged. But apparently she did go to jail for 6 months. So there were apparently a couple of little inaccuracies in there, but nothing that changes the
general story.
Yeah, the general story.
I mean, what the book brought up for me was this idea that you just started talking about it, you know, the ownership of art. So art is in museums for people. Obviously, people think it's valuable enough to keep, and they want other people to be able to see it, and we want to preserve it because it has historical and cultural values. But you know, it's like, who gets to decide what goes in museums and what is available for the general public to see? And this idea of one person I'm going to use the word
Liberating.
liberating when he's taking pieces out of the museums and the galleries, because I think of galleries like the National Gallery in London, and big museums whose work is basically having taken antiquities from other
Well,
countries
and
over the years to build their
that's
collections,
right.
right?
So a lot of work that we look at in museums was actually stolen,
Yeah,
when you think about it, and then put on display.
yeah.
Yeah, it
So,
was a really interesting look at that whole world. It's honestly, it's something I've never really thought about. I mean, there are movies where, you know, they have the cat
right.
burglars who go in and
The
steal
grand
something.
heist, the
The
Bond
grand
style
heist,
heist.
yeah. And they're pretty exciting, but I never really thought about it as being a big issue. I mean,
Mhm.
now we have people defacing artwork
Right.
to make a political statement, which I think is horrific. You know, when I read those stories about somebody throwing paint at a painting or at a sculpture, you know, because they're protesting something, that sickens me. The fact that he took such good care of the works,
Hmm.
and then kept them safe
Yes.
for a while.
Right.
Spoiler alert.
I mean, he did say that he didn't plan to sell them. His goal was not to steal for profit. He was borrowing them, and he was planning on giving them back at some point, although you can't imagine how that was going to happen. But I found it really interesting because even the author, Finkel, later on when he starts talking about the artwork, he refers to the paintings and the sculptures that Stefan has stolen as his paintings, his sculptures, which I thought was interesting. Like, did Breitweiser get in his head?
I think I think Breitweiser did get in his head. I think he really he spent 10 to 12 years, I think, interviewing him
Yeah.
and meeting with him and going on little walkabouts back to the scene of the crime. And
Mm-hmm.
I think he did become quite intrigued by him. So I guess one of my big questions is he, Breitweiser, a hero or a villain?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Or was he both? Could he maybe be cast in both lights, right?
Hmm.
I mean, obviously we all can't walk into galleries and museums and take things and take them home with us. I mean, we can't do that, right? And there's lots of security guards and things in place to make sure that we don't do that. But I think hero and villain, I almost feel like that's setting it up to be it's a false dichotomy in terms of what he was. I think he clearly had some mental health problems. A big part of the book is the therapists who talked to him over the years and did all these interviews and sort of categorized his personality
Tried
or
to.
tried.
They said they couldn't find any criminal
Yes.
tendencies, which I thought was
Yeah. But
interesting. I mean,
the obsessive compulsive part of the
yes,
personality.
yeah, but that's not really criminal, right? Like
Yeah.
that's, you know, a lot of people have that. Um, but he almost is someone now, like nowadays, you would wonder if he would be considered to be on the spectrum because he had such a laser focus and such a passion for one kind of thing in his life. And he knew everything about it more than the curators in the museums. It would seem like he researched the pieces and he just knew everything there was about
Yeah.
it.
Well,
That
I
was
would
like
say probably
superpower,
more like borderline personality because he
maybe.
had a really good ability to rationalize everything that he
He
had
sure
done,
did.
right? And that's
Yeah.
a big part of it. You do something that's illegal or wrong or maybe not moral or ethical, and if you can rationalize it, then it's not a problem for your morality.
What did you think of his choices of what he
Well,
decided to take and what
thought
he
that was
wasn't interested in?
I thought that was really interesting because the book does have some color photos in the middle, because they weren't anything that I would have ever recognized. Most of the artists are artists that I wouldn't have heard of. So but he really knew his 16th and 17th century art.
Hmm.
So he wasn't choosing pieces for their value, either their historical value or their cultural value or their monetary value. He chose pieces that he was genuinely really, really attracted to. And, there was some sense of They could have been like passionate sort of pieces that aroused passions in him, or he had a lot of pieces that were related to war and military and
like the ship. There was a
yeah.
ship, and there was um, not a revolver, but some kind of a. My mind is gone, but yeah, some weapons.
Yeah.
Was there a crossbow or
Yes,
something?
the crossbow.
That's
Well, how he
good.
got the crossbow out was crazy, right?
That was the one that
So
was hanging.
yes,
That he had to
yeah,
get up on the chair.
he had to get up on the chair, and that was the one that went out the castle window, right?
He threw it out the castle
I
window.
I have been. There was one of the castles that we'd been to in the south of France.
Oh yeah.
Trying to remember which one now. The one that he got the tapestry from.
How do you steal
Well,
a tapestry?
do you know what? It's interesting because our idea of galleries and museums tends to be more like the big city places that we visit now. Like you can't imagine going into the MoMA and being able to walk out with something, right?
Oh God.
Or the Metropolitan Museum. Like there's guards, there's so much security, everything is so high value, there's so many people around. But a lot of the types of galleries and museums that he was visiting, when we've gone to Europe and been in small places, the place he was in Lucerne, we visited that. These are small, multi-roomed, oftentimes old houses or old, chateaus, small sort of castles. There might be somebody at the front door, and there might be a guard walking up and down, a security guard on the other levels. And sometimes there's a lot of stuff.
Yeah, just kind of
like it's not like our modern gallery where there's one big piece on a wall. There can be shelves and cases and lots of things. And so a guard can't be watching you every moment, even if you're in the room. And things aren't as secure. I mean, that's one of the things I really enjoyed about the story, actually, is that the flip side of it, the good side of it, was his story probably led to improved security at a lot of small galleries and museums. It's kind of like the white hacker thing, right? Like you get a hacker who finds the holes in the online security system, and that's good because then you can patch them once you know what they are.
Mm-hmm. But on the other hand, I guess the downside of that is these places would need to be, out of necessity, more secure, and they may not have had the budgets to hire more people, or they might have had to like cordon off areas. So it kind of spoiled it in a little way for the rest of us, because it's an honor system, I suspect. Yeah. I mean, we have historical buildings that have artifacts, and Dundurn Castle in Hamilton, and there's stuff sitting out, and it is an honor system that you're not just going to like reach past the little corded off area and grab the nice little vase that's sitting on the table from 1820 something.
It makes me wonder though, like in this day of air tags and things like that, whether I know it would be a lot of work to tag an entire collection, but that might be a pretty easy way to keep certain items, especially smaller items that are more likely to be targets and more easily taken. I don't know.
Like a microchip?
Yeah. Well, the thing you put in your luggage that you can just buy an Apple AirTag.
Like
right? There's also
so when you leave it like blows up.
Yeah. Or it can be tracked. Is the idea, right? So when your suitcase ends up going to Australia instead of New York, you've got an app on your phone that shows you exactly where it is.
Where it is. I was going to say something. Oh, what I found interesting was just when they were talking about the different divisions and the various police forces that are responsible for art crimes, artwork thefts. How many pieces are missing? Like all over the world.
Yes.
Like just never been found. And that sort of got me thinking too. Like, again, this was a topic that I really hadn't thought about. Paintings that have gone missing and sculptures that have gone missing over the years, and they've just never turned up. I mean, they could be in somebody's basement, and they talk about. I thought that one funny story about that police station that they found the tapestry. Was it in a ditch?
Yeah.
And they thought, well, this is pretty cool looking, and they took it back to the police station and they used it as a rug for a while and this was like centuries old, until they realized, oh, this is like actually a really valuable artifact. So some of it I thought was kind of amusing in that regard, that these like rarefied pieces are being used under the pool table or something, whatever it was happening. Peggy's
asked a question. Does this book talk about the Elizabeth Garden Museum in Boston? I can't remember.
I don't think If it did, it would be a side story, and because all of this took place in Europe, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So, as an example, why, Peggy?
Do you know something,
Well,
Peggy,
come on and
about that?
talk to us a little bit
Come
about
on and
that.
talk to us. That was a museum I wanted to go
Yeah.
to when we were in Boston 2 summers ago. We just didn't make it because it was a family wedding and nobody else wanted to go with me. Yeah, Peggy, if you want
to come on,
just hit the plus icon on the camera below, and then you can come on and tell us about it. But in keeping with this idea about learning about all these different police stations and organizations for tracking down crime, the other thing that was amazing to me is these countries. Like, he was in France, and he would drive to Belgium, drive to Switzerland, drive to everything is in driving distance to capture art, and none of these police stations are talking to one another. So there's no coordination. So it was kind of happening, and everybody's got their own list, but they're not talking to understand that, here she is, that something's actually going on. Peggy, I just accepted you. Let's see if you come on. If it doesn't work, I will.
Come in.
She's here.
Peggy.
Hi, Peggy. Nice to see you.
Hi.
Except on social media.
How are you?
I'm well, thank you.
Nice
it's
to
so
see you.
good. Nice to see you too. I love your artwork, and I'm so glad to actually meet you. I don't know how to get this thing. I'm not camera.
You're doing it.
I'm not camera pretty today, but I came on.
We're just so glad to see your smiling face.
We're a very small group today. We're a very small group today, so no fear.
Okay. All right. So, yeah, it's kind of unbelievable. The Elizabeth Gardner, is it Garden or Gardner? I think it's Gardner Museum in Boston. Yeah. I think they stole them in daylight, and that's a well-guarded museum. So it's still a mystery today. Someone has them. I don't. Someone else would know the story better than I would.
What did they take? What was taken?
I think Mary Cassatt's and a lot of Impressionist artists. Yeah. Now, I wish my late husband went to school in Boston and was such a really understood the theft of the museum. I went to it, and they leave the frame up with the empty. You just see the wallpaper behind. To remind everybody, this was a theft, and an unsolved one.
Yeah. Do you know how long ago it was? Is it fairly recent, recent times?
Well, I think in the last 30, 40 years, I'm not sure.
So
I'll be misquoted.
They cut the paintings out of the frame.
I think they just stole it, but the museum put a frame up just to remind people that these valuable pieces were stolen. I shouldn't even talk about it because I'm sure everything I've just said is wrong, but there was a theft.
We'll do a fact check.
Yes, we will fact check it later.
Okay.
But
sounds good.
It's kind of interesting because you think, as far as Breitweiser, he wasn't planning on selling them, and the pieces that he had were not famous pieces. But if you go into a museum where there's famous pieces, like I would think we all know who the Impressionists are. That what would you do with those? Is there a market? Is there like a dark market?
Well, I think so. I'm not an expert on this, but you could never sell them on an open market. It would be something where a closed dark market that it would be sold in. Yeah. Everybody's alerted to the pieces. Yeah. So, no one could sell them,
No, I mean, now then you're getting into serious crime. And I think one of the things they came up with in the book is saying you don't get much for selling these pieces on the black market or fencing them, whatever it is they do, that they're just, if you're going to be a criminal, this isn't probably the right kind of criminal to be. There's better things to steal, basically, that will fetch you more money.
Yeah. I don't want to interrupt your show. I really wanted to meet the two of you because I love your work, and I think you both have a wonderful sense of humor and bring so much of yourself to the program, and Instagram. So I'll
Yeah.
let you get back to your thing. It's just a pleasure to meet you.
Well,
Thanks for coming on and sharing that. We're going to go fact check now.
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
fact checking. I got my guy on it. Thanks, Peggy.
Thanks, Peggy. So nice.
A Roman. You have Roman on it.
Yes.
I do. Roman's working on it now. We'll get back to you.
All right. Thank you. So
Thanks,
how do I
Peggy.
get out of here?
You have a little X in the top right hand of your corner screen, I think.
I have to get my glasses.
Yeah, that's
Can you?
mine. Here, borrow mine. They're useless during
No,
this show.
just X me out. Can you X me out?
I can't. I don't think I can't.
Okay.
I can't give anybody the hook.
No.
Wow. Well, I'll just keep quiet. You guys keep talking.
There must be a little X thing there.
Yeah, but I have to find my glasses first.
Yeah, go get.
Okay.
It's okay. Go get your glasses.
Danielle, what? Oh, you're agreeing. I was thinking you're saying nice things too. Thank you. We love it. We appreciate you guys.
Just say nice things to us, Dave.
That
should be a theme of a show.
It should.
Just say nice things to us. Oh, you're back. Okay, check it out. Do you see next? Yeah.
Bye, Peggy.
I should talk because I have these here. Oh, that's what's going on today. So bad. Anyways, what were we saying? Oh, shall we discuss the end part?
Yeah, so I guess we'll do a quick spoiler alert here. If you don't want to know what happens at the very end, then you want to leave. We did tell you that he does get arrested. He does do.
He gets arrested a few times.
He does time, and then he gets out, and then he's stupid, and he does it again. He can't help himself.
He can't help himself, and apparently he was stealing things after that he didn't really want, but he couldn't. He's compulsive.
Yeah, he's compulsive. I mean, even the way that he got caught was crazy because it was the classic "don't ever return to the scene of the crime," right? And he did that, and he went back, and they were able to catch him that way, right? So
He's kind of like a serial killer. I mean, I don't know if anybody's been watching all the serial killer programs on Netflix, but they often do that. And they go back. They even participate in the hunt, right?
Yeah,
and helpful, can be very helpful. So I did find this bizarro kind of connection, that personality that they just feel they need to be somehow involved. Continuing, it's not enough just to do the act or steal the art.
Maybe he needed a job. He did need
He totally
a job,
needed a job. He's like the kid who won't leave the basement. You know, you got your 40-year-old son still living in the basement. Like that was him.
Well, he did have a plot to try when he got caught. So after he got out of prison, he was going to basically be a white hacker. He had this plot that he would approach museums and he was going to teach them the things that were what was at risk in their museum. And he had people who were very interested in this. And then he went and stole again and got caught and got sent back to jail. So all of his job opportunities dried up, Danielle.
Like that. He could not stop himself. He was compulsive and a crybaby too at that.
Yeah. Do you know what it reminded me of? You say serial killers. I was picturing who's the Christian Bale as Patrick Bateman in American Psycho during parts of the read.
Were you?
Yes, because
so if you were making a movie and you were casting him, would you choose Christian Bale?
Yes, because as in that character, you know the movie, right?
Yeah, I know.
Classic movie, Patrick Bateman.
He's so jolly.
He was
and weird,
but they were too. Like they talked to the museum guards. They presented as kind of normal people. They dressed up. They were always in very, very expensive clothes that they got at secondhand stores. And they created a persona so that you would not look at them and think that they were responsible. Right. And just the idea, though, that he kind of had no sense of guilt or wrongdoing. That was the Patrick Bateman analogy for me, that, you know, he kind of was just going about his business, and
this is what he does. This is his purpose in life.
Yeah.
I have to think about who I would cast. It has to be somebody who can cry at like the drop of a hat, because this guy spends a lot of time being very emotional.
What about, you know who else I would cast?
Who?
JB. Justin Bateman. I bet
really
he could do it. Because I think of his character Marty in Ozark too, right? Who was just like calm, cool, everyday man. Not really very well, he could get emotional, but was able to kind of stuff it down.
We just want to see Jason
We
Bateman.
do. Jason, sorry, not Justin. Jeez, his sister's Justine, right?
Yes.
Jason
Yeah.
Bateman. Jason Bateman. Yeah, we just want to see Jason
We just
Bateman.
want to see him do anything, frankly.
We do. We do.
So,
Okay.
did everybody clear the room who doesn't want to hear the thing?
There's still 10 people watching. So, spoiler alert, this is what happens at the end of the book, The Art Thief by Michael Finkel. And it's a true story, so you may already know what happened at the end.
Yeah, maybe not a secret.
Yeah. So go ahead.
I was just going to say, so the whole time this is going on, and he's living in his mother's attic, basically, and his mother, he felt his mother didn't know what was going on. They moved in hundreds of pieces of art, some of them large sculptures. There was that big, was it the Madonna or something?
150-pound sculpture.
Pound. And they had to get it up the stairs, and the mom never noticed. Like, just didn't notice her little boy was dragging all this stuff upstairs. I guess when he was arrested, he was trying to get word to his mom and to Anne Catherine, and was it to get rid of the art or to move the art? But
or
he never heard.
Yeah,
he never
not
got
to say anything.
Not to say, zip it, right? Not to say anything. And then I guess his mom visited one time and kind of mouthed to him, "What art? There is no art." So
Susan's saying, "Don't tell us the end." Well, that's why we did a spoiler alert, Susan.
Susan,
okay,
cover your ears.
We won't go there then.
We won't go there.
We won't go there then.
I'm telling you.
We won't go there then.
No, Susan.
We won't.
I was enraged.
Yeah, that's the only way to say it.
I was.
You were
enraged, horrified, and sickened. How's that?
Okay. We won't say anything more then.
That's it. We won't say anything about the end.
Our podcast is over for the day. Okay, we got another no tell.
You too.
Okay, we won't tell. Are you guys going to go read the book though? Are you going to read the book now?
It's a
You won't put it down.
Yeah.
Like it is a two night can't put it down page turner.
Yeah.
And very easy to read. Like you want to know what's going to happen at the end. I mean the whole time I'm just reading it going, I can't believe these people can walk into museums and take work this easily.
Yeah. I love though the idea, and it was one of the interviews I read with the author about how Breitweiser was talking about how you really have to touch art and even smell art, which I thought was interesting. That touching it almost like he was transported. There was something about feeling the brush strokes or feeling how smooth a carving was or holding something in his hands. And I have to say, that is something that I do when I walk into a gallery or something like that. My instinct is to do this, and I have to really stop myself. It's like I have to touch it even before I have a chance to see it or really look at it. I just feel this urge to touch the art.
Well, it's so a lot of, and especially work that's so highly textured, right? You look at kind of the old masters and the impasto sort of techniques, and you want to make that kind of visceral connection to it as well. It is not just a visual thing. And oil paintings, they still smell a long time after they're finished, right? They carry that wonderful sort of smell of the oils and the mediums. But
I think that the article I think Rena sent us, hypoallergenic?
Yeah, hypoallergenic.
Yeah. And they were talking about kind of reimagining what museums could be and how we do get overwhelmed. When you walk into a museum, it is kind of like walking into a home sense where, there's like so much stuff to look at. You want to see one painting, but you have to also look at the 25 paintings that are around that one painting. And so it's almost like this sensory overload that you just can't focus on it. And that to reimagine a museum where you have one painting in one space and a nice comfortable sofa to sit on so that you can just spend time with that piece.
Yeah.
And I honestly think this is what he wanted to do. He just wanted to spend time with these artworks and not just look at them and move on and look at them and move it. He actually wanted to incorporate them into his life, which I really appreciated that. And I kind of get that.
Well,
I understand that.
And that's why when we purchase art,
Yes.
you know, we buy a piece of art and hang it on our wall, we're looking at something that we can walk by every day
Yeah.
and on a different light notice something. You know, it's the same idea, right? When we look,
I mean, you're right. Like there is something about an original piece of art that is not the same as just a picture or poster.
yeah.
You
Well,
almost get a sense of the artist. You get a sense of
touching it really gives you a connection to the artist. It's more like touching the artist and being in their presence. And you know, even if the piece is hundreds of years old, there's that sort of transmission of, yes, the artist's brush touched this spot right here that I'm dying to touch, but that I don't. What was the piece that I got in trouble for getting too close to? Was that
was that at the Whitney?
I was at the Whitney.
It wasn't.
Yeah, it was
at the Museum of Modern Art, but you were starting to move in.
Just to look. I wasn't going to touch.
I know that. But then the security guard, like, you know, the running back of some football team was in there, and I'm surprised he didn't tackle you, but basically it was like, move away from the painting, ma'am. And it is really tough to not reach out and touch that. I wonder if that's true for, you know, somebody who's not a painter.
Right. Douglas just asked a great question. How would you feel, I'm throwing this at you, if someone stole your art?
It happened to me.
Did? Really?
Yeah. Oh gosh, when I graduated from art school, I actually had a bunch of framed monoprints. Some were quite big. And they went into a little gallery. Back in the day, there really weren't a lot of galleries around. And I ended up having a few pieces in this gallery in Hess Village in Hamilton. I don't know if you know Hess Village in Hamilton.
I know Hamilton.
You know Hamilton. So Hess Village is it's like Village Square in Burlington. It was shops and restaurants and quite lovely back in the early 80s. And there was this nice gallery, really lovely gallery, and they got broken into and they got robbed, and I had artwork stolen.
Wow. And how did you feel?
God, I have to think way back. I was kind of horrified, but weirdly flattered.
Yes, yes. I was going to say the same thing. Yeah, they like me. They like me.
They really like me. Like they, you know, enough to steal. And my pieces were like, when they were framed, they were behind glass, so monoprint glass, metal frame, and they're quite heavy. I still have a few at home, but yeah, I was like strangely flattered. It was kind of neat.
Wouldn't that be cool if you found them on some auction site and they were like going for big bucks?
Now, you know, I honestly haven't thought about that in decades. So yeah, but you know, I was like practically, you know, just fresh out of art school. So that was kind of neat.
You had work stolen as a student too. Okay. So art thieves target student work.
Oh, I have a slightly related story too. Where was
this? Slightly.
Okay. This is high school. Okay. And I had made a drawing or something. I don't even remember what it was. And I didn't like it. So I got rid of it. I threw it out. Somebody else in my class took it out of the garbage and submitted it as their own.
Wow.
Now, that pissed me off. Because like that's theft, but it's also saying that they did the piece that I did. Like, I know that's my piece, and all I have to do is walk over to the art teacher and just say, actually, that's my piece. So that was that was bad. That I did.
What did you do? Did you do that? Did you turn him in?
I think I went to that person and said, you can't do this. Like that is my piece. And I know that you have to make it right. So I think I put the pressure on them. I don't think I ratted on them.
Snitches get stitches.
I know. Yeah, where did I hear that last? Stitches get stitches.
I'm Smartless.
Oh, yes.
Douglas, you know what? I think I would feel the same sort of, and I've had quite a bit of work out in local coffee shops and those kinds of places, and it's small work. And honestly, I had never thought about people taking it. I was more worried because my experience has been fire, flood, and plague has happened to me every time I've had to work at a local place. Has been more concerned about damage.
Yeah.
And then if it came back to me damaged, what do I do with that then, right? I can't sell the piece or I have to fix it. So I hadn't really thought about anybody stealing work until this spring when I have 6 big pieces in a local brewing pub, and they're way too big to walk off with. Like, honestly, they're big, and we've got a double clip system, so they're clipped up and onto the wall.
Oh, are they?
So yeah, so
really
they're actually a challenge to get up and off, and they're sitting in places over tables. But I think it was my husband who said,
Bernie.
yeah, he's always looking for
Bernie.
this.
Now she's worried.
He's always looking for the ways to get around the law and the loopholes for everything. He's like, well, how are they gonna, what if someone just picks up and walks off with them? And I looked at him and I'm like, really? Like, that's not gonna happen. But now I'm thinking, with what you guys have said, that it's not impossible.
Impossible.
I'd just make more. That's my attitude. I'll just make more.
Well, and it's that whole thing about attachment too. Like, how attached are you really to work that's finished?
I'm not attached at all. In fact, on one level, not that I'm encouraging any of you to go and steal my art, but if things don't sell by the end of a show, I don't want them at home anymore. I've got place for them. I've got too much new stuff.
I know. I would be more upset if somebody stole a work in progress.
Yeah. Because
I'm still attached to it.
Yeah.
But once it's done, go for it. Knock yourself. No, we are not encouraging art theft. Here's our disclaimer. We are not suggesting you all go out and start stealing art.
Right.
You know who you are out there.
Exactly.
But if you could steal something, is there one that you'd want to take home? I'm talking about a piece that we might all know.
There was a piece that I saw in MoMA last year, and I can't even remember. I had to come home and look up who the artist was because it was not an artist I knew. It was on the 5th floor, and they were doing the piece. It was a single piece, and it was very bright colors, lots of primary colors, and lots of beautiful, transparent, overlapping shapes like triangles. Remember that piece? And I took a picture of that, and I was like, oh my God, I love this. And I came home, and I had it on my camera or my phone for the last year, and I look at it periodically, and I did look the person up, but then I did not want to go down the rabbit hole of looking at the rest of their work because I didn't want it in my head. But that was a piece.
Whitney? Wasn't it?
No, it was at the MoMA. It was on the 5th floor.
I think I'd take a Marc Chagall.
Would you?
They're big, though.
Yeah.
Like, there's that giant one with like the goat's heads, and wouldn't mind that.
Douglas, what did you do when you had work disappear from shows? Can you write it off as an expense on your taxes?
Or insurance? There's got to be. The gallery must have, or the
depends on where it goes from, right? Like, a gallery would have insurance for that. If you have work in a cafe,
no, they wouldn't.
They're not gonna cover theft. They're gonna cover fire and flood and that sort of stuff in their general.
Actually, I can't remember which show. There's a bunch of shows or a bunch of venues doing a call to artists, and if you read the fine print, sometimes they say the artist must provide their own insurance.
That's right. That happens for a lot of outdoor art fairs, I've noticed. It's not that expensive.
I would think outdoor fairs you're going to get more theft, or something like the One of a Kind show where you've got tons of people coming through, and you could be facing this direction and talking to somebody, and somebody is swooping out behind you.
Yeah. Some cover and some don't. That's right. Yeah. That's right. And then, it's just a whole other issue, right? It's a good reason if you're going to have your art out there in places and you're going to be submitting shows and it's going to be out of your home before it goes to collectors, is to have a good way of documenting everything you have. So having whatever your system is for keeping track of the work. Yes. So right, Susan. So, but once it leaves your house, what happens? If it's in transit to a collector's place, does your insurance cover? My home insurance doesn't. And when you're in the gallery, does it cover? There's a lot of kind of gray areas there, but one of my thoughts was just to make sure that you've documented everything. So you guys know I'm an Artwork Archives fan. I use that for everything, and I've just discovered some really great extra things it can do for me. But it has images of all my pieces, it has inventory numbers, and it has the prices. So at least if I have to write it off for submit it for insurance purposes, or write it off my income tax as loss for the year, I know I can do that. I can document that ahead of time. That's what Douglas said. He wrote it off. It was in a salon. He was pissed at first, but then figured that they really needed that piece. Yeah, you probably made their life a little better.
How would you feel though living with a stolen piece of art?
I'm sorry. I can't even tell. I have a hard time telling white lies. So
so I couldn't either. So yes, I would love to bring home a Marc Chagall, but then I would know that I stole it, and that's not good.
I'll tell you, the only time I ever stole anything in my life, I was 5. Oh. And this is what my mother did. And so she created a fear of stealing in me. We were walking out to the car after a trip to the grocery store, and I had my hand clasped tightly to my side, and she asked me what was in it, and I said nothing. And she said, "What's in your hand?" And she finally got me to open my hand, and I stole a pack of Lifesavers that was probably worth 5 cents. She marched me back into the store and asked to see the manager, and made me give it back to the manager and apologize for what I had done. And that has stayed with me for my whole life. The mortification of that.
Well, there you go. So she instilled in you this honesty.
So Susan says, Art Vancouver has one-time only insurance charge if you need it. Oh, that's good to know. And I think, you know what, I use Hub Insurance for my my personal training business. So I think that they do something similar. So you can find insurance, and it's a lot of times it's just a one-time thing. Like if you're going to be out for a weekend event, you can get coverage for that event, and it's not that expensive. So good to know.
Yeah. Well, this has been delightful.
It has. We just
I hope we haven't encouraged any bad behavior of people.
I hope not. I hope not. Don't steal our art. And if you don't resell it. Steal it because you really love it and it makes you happy.
But then I hope you don't sleep at night. Well, I guess we don't have another book lined up for a couple months, but
we don't. We should probably put one together. So if any of you guys have read something or have something on your to-read list that's an art-related book that we haven't read, not too long. Like don't say 9th Street Women, because we read, but nobody's going to read it for a talk like this. We're happy to take. You can send us a DM afterwards if you have something that you'd like us to read or you'd like to read, and that's great. We'll probably try to schedule something for end of November.
Yeah.
We have all our October dates set with guests for you guys. So we will let you know those kind of the week in advance or a few days in advance, because life happens and people sometimes have to cancel.
I know. That was our summer.
Rena said The Slip. Okay, Rena, I'm going to look it up. You have good ideas for books. I have that other book.
Driving, Rena.
I have that other book too, Your Brain on Art.
Oh yeah.
But it might be too much of a researchy book, which makes it harder to get through and harder to talk about, because you just end up with so many little research points you want to hit on. Yeah. Like I liked this one because there was a really compelling narrative and story to read. So would you submit?
And it was a quick one.
It was a quick one.
So.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, Rena's at the post office. Hopefully you're shipping paintings, Rena.
She's not driving with one hand and texting with the other.
No, she's at the post office now.
What are you mailing us?
I hope she's mailing art to new collectors.
Or maybe picking up art.
That would be even better. Your Brain on Art. Very academic. That's what I thought. I'm not going to recommend anything that I haven't managed to get through myself.
Yeah, and it should be enjoyable, right? Like academic stuff is fun, but not really fun. But it's a bit more of a slog, and you want to go at it at a slower pace.
Yeah, and even Picasso's War, which was a great book, was a really long, detailed, in-depth read. So I would read it again. Somebody else. Oh, what did somebody tell me? I'm going to find out, because she's mailing handmade cards. Somebody
Nice.
sent me, Rena, you sent me another book that was about the Metropolitan Museum of Art that I put in my to read pile, and I can't remember the name of it. So I will find out that one too. Okay. All right. So what are you doing this afternoon?
Putting all our furniture back where it belongs.
Okay.
Once all the carpet's dry. I added more stuff to these guys.
I think you got to keep the wood, because you know what,
right.
those little ones that I did, I got so much, and there's a bunch bigger ones that I'm working on up there. So many people said they really liked seeing the raw grain of the wood, and I started those ones with clear gesso.
Oh, okay.
To preserve it.
These have so much gloss medium. That wood is not. It's probably got six layers of gloss medium, and I like your idea of getting the frames, because I'm thinking, what am I going to do with the sides? Like, there's not much going on. There's no drips and things because it's collaged with the paint skins. So putting a frame on it would actually solve that problem quite nicely.
You know what?
Make it look very presentable.
Their frames are gorgeous if you've looked at them up. We're talking about Rustic Burl. I'm doing all the shout outs because they have been so amazing in getting me a frame really quickly that I needed to match some others that went off to a client. You can see the wood grain.
They're gorgeous. Now, and you know, you'll be getting a FaceTime from me when I do eventually get them in going, I don't know how to put these together.
Theirs are really easy. They don't need offsets. All you have to do is have a drill. I just drilled right into the back and right into the back of the cradle panel. But I can walk you through it.
You're going to walk me through it, because drill, power tool, I don't know.
Okay. It's not hard. It
could go sideways.
No, it won't. It won't. We'll do it.
We'll do it together.
We will.
Alrighty.
All right, guys. Well, we'll see you next week. We do have a guest next week, and I have to double check with her and confirm that she's still going to come and chat with us.
Yahoo!
So I won't tell you her name yet.
No.
So yeah, thanks good to see you, Deborah, Nadine, and Barb, and
you,
and me,
and you.
We'll see you guys next week. Thanks everybody for popping on today and listening to us and giving us your feedback on us not spoiling the book for you. Yeah, so I'm glad we did that.
Okay. Thank you. Happy week.
Bye.
Happy painting week.
Take care.
Bye.